That I've got for you again today. What's the greatest moment in your life following Clemson Tiger basketball? So great run of success, no doubt this year, 9-1, the 21 point win over Georgia Tech last night. But what's the greatest moment in your life following Clemson Tiger basketball? And I said earlier, I think I know the worst. I think I know the worst. And if you want to text us at any time, you can. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can hit us up. 803-450-0086. You can also call us and leave us a message about that moment if it was just unbelievable. But I feel like I know the worst for most of you. Most of you are old enough to remember Clemson basketball getting beat in the NCAA tournament by UConn. Tate George, 1 second left, and inbounds all the way down the court. 1 second on the clock. Swish. Tigers out of the NCAA tournament, a tournament in which they would have gone to the Elite Eight. They eventually did vacate that tournament for Clemson, but the NCAA did. But the thing about it, as a kid growing up, when Tate George hits that three-pointer, I was at my house. Clemson had played BYU and LaSalle and had come back in both of those games, and it was kind of the same story in this matchup against UConn. Clemson had come back, but I had found my hot spot. This is when I was really superstitious as a kid. And so I moved to get up close to see the end of the game, and Tate George hits that three, or that two-pointer, to win it at the buzzer. And you talk about just heartbreak. I mean, that was gut-wrenching. Like, I can remember the video and what it looked like and the Meadowlands and just, painful. But if you flip it and say, what's the greatest moment? Because it's not like Clemson's achieved some grand glory of an NIT championship or an NCAA championship or even a conference championship. They've never won the league during the conference tournament. They've won it as the regular season champions one time. But what is the greatest moment? Philip hits us up and says, Little John was awesome in 96 and 97. The atmosphere every game was off the charts. He also says 1990-91 Duke game was pretty awesome for an 11-year-old in person. Dale says, I have several, but hoping it's this season with an ACC championship and a bid to the NCAA tournament. Heath chimes in and says, being there when we won the ACC Atlantic Division, the Atlantic regular or the ACC regular season title versus Duke. Spencer says the greatest moment in his Clemson basketball life was the Tigers winning for the first time up at North Carolina a couple of seasons ago. My sister says it was watching me stand behind the goal all those years. There was a lot of that, believe me. Funny, Tim Bray and I were talking about that the other day. I can't imagine how many photos I have to be in from that time in Clemson basketball history. Because I see myself on the old ACC archive videos. I see myself in the Sports Illustrated when it came out a couple of times in that Sports Illustrated when Clemson rose to number 2 in the poll. I think the article is titled, Behold Those Tigers. And that was the cover of that one was the Carolina Panthers at the Green Bay Packers for the NFC Championship. Don chimes in and says, watching Clemson beat number 1 Duke in 1980 behind Larry Nance and Billy Williams. David says the Duke game in 1990 to win the ACC regular season. So a lot of comments from people coming in about their best moments. We'll get it back into some of those again here in just a little bit. But I had a hunch that it was going to be a couple of things. I felt like the things that had a chance to legitimately make this list for Clemson would be beating North Carolina on the road for the first time. Now, some might say that's when Clemson football started to take a step back because the next thing you know, a day or two later, you're playing in the national championship against LSU and you get beat, and it's been kind of downhill since then. Not steep slope downhill, but right, like college football national championship, college football playoff, out of the playoffs. Now it seems like maybe you're turning the corner back up a little bit, getting back into one of the Big Six bowl games this year in the Orange Bowl, but you got beat. Other games that I thought, or other seasons that I thought people would talk about, and it's probably one that's, you got to be a little bit older than I am. You probably have to be about 55, because that would have put you, that would have made you about 13 or so. Maybe some of you that are closer to 60 really remember Clemson's run in 1980 and the fact that they made it to the Elite Eight in the NCAA tournament. But if you just talk about moments, there haven't been a ton. Another one that I didn't see yet, and I'm sure somebody's going to bring it up. I'll also check Twitter here in just a little bit, but I think you got to consider Greg Buckner's dunk at the ACC tournament to eliminate North Carolina. What is most commonly known by a lot of people by the legendary Jim Phillips, his call, Buckner jams. Buckner jams. Buckner jams. That was for a young guy at Clemson who was the same age as Terrell McIntyre and Harold Jamison and Tom Wyman and Tony Christie and Andres Drakunis and all of those 7 freshmen that came in. To see that group the following year, I believe that was the second year. Maybe that may have been their freshman year. I gotta think back. That may have been, was that their freshman season? Ikari Turbe was playing in that game, I think. I don't think Ikari played that year, the freshman year. So that may have been the sophomore year. Whatever season that was for those guys. Man, beating North Carolina in the state of North Carolina, that was actually the first time that Clemson had ever done that. Joseph, matter of fact, references it. The dunk heard round the ACC. Greg Buckner. Todd says, growing up in North Carolina all my life, it was easily Buckner's dunk to beat the Tar Heels in the ACC tournament. Ron says, beating the Tar Heels in Chapel Hill. Ben chimes in, says, beating the crap out of Auburn to advance to the Sweet 16. I was there. That's Ben Milstead from 105.5 The Roar in the Upstate. Co-host along with William Qualkenbush on Out of Bounds. Tony says, beating Tim Duncan in the Deeks. Big. I don't remember that game, Tony. I certainly had to be following it. Was it a home game? I'm really not sure. Dennis says, truthfully, I only follow Clemson football. Go Tigers. Eddie says, how about Tree Rollins and Stan Rome? And that's the thing that I think is sorely missing. I'm going to see if I can pull up Twitter real quick and get some responses from there. But I do think that the modern era with more video and these things being shared on like YouTube and things of that nature, where you can get to them more frequently and more easily, probably will help people remember some things. Johnny Carrots says 2 words, the dunk. Of course, talking about Greg Buckner. Adam says the Sweet 16 run for sure and blowing out Auburn was peak. Nick says Buckner's dunk to beat North Carolina in the ACC tournament. Southern Man says beating Duke 74-47 in 2009. Man, we got a lot of responses. I'll tell you what, we're running out of time. We'll have to roll these over to a little later in the program. When we come back here on the show, though, we'll hear from some of the players from last night's victory over Georgia Tech as Clemson wins it by 21 in Little John Coliseum, 72-51. Stay with us.